Housing is top of mind for a whole lot of people living in the state of California. And now Sacramento Mayor Darrell Steinberg has a plan to make housing a right for every resident in the capital city. That plan, which would be the first ever implemented in the nation, would require Sacramento to build enough housing to those unsheltered by 2023 in order to provide the homeless with housing. If not, those unsheltered would be able to sue.
Here in California, the debate over whether or not housing is a right has divided Democrats. Former Governor Jerry Brown told me last month in an interview on Inside California Politics he believes people should have to contribute in order to receive housing. Just weeks later, on that same program, former Stockton Mayor Michael Tubbs explained why he believes everyone has a right to housing. So we took up that topic as well as bipartisanship in California this week on Inside California Politics. Here is my full interview with Democratic consultant Steve Maviglio and Republican political consultant Rob Stutzman. Rob, Steve, the Sacramento Mayor Darrell Steinberg obviously frustrated with the homeless situation here in the Sacramento area. Every city across the state dealing with this right now. So he unveiled this proposal, this right to housing proposal. And Steve, you penned an op-ed in the Sacramento Bee recently. And I want to quote you right here. You say, however, his latest proposal providing a binding right to housing seems born out of his frustration. It's an idea that seems uncooked without the mayor's usual thoughtfulness and could quickly lead to a myriad of unintended consequences for the city and unhoused population. What did you mean by that?
Well, first of all, I'm a big fan of the mayor. He's done a lot on this issue, probably more than any other mayor in the state. But this latest idea just seems not his usual well thought out process of working through the issues and more of a reaction to the lack of action from local government, state government, county government on this issue. If you drive around Sacramento, San Francisco, Los Angeles, anywhere these days, now even in the rural counties, it's just gotten out of control. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But there's not been a lot of action despite literally billions of dollars being spent on this issue for the last 20 years. And a lot of voters and even progressive Democrats like myself who are very compassionate about the issue are saying enough is enough. You've got to do something. And I think this proposal is just going to be making matters worse because it's going to invite lots of lawsuits. It's going to involve billions more that'll come out of the hide of other necessary services on a city basis and could have some serious long-term adverse consequences for the city and doesn't help the homeless.
You talked about throwing money at the problem. I mean, before the pandemic, Rob, in January of 2020, the governor's State of the State was solely focused on the homeless crisis. And throughout the past couple of years, there has been billions of dollars, sort of thrown at the problem with no real solution.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think what we're seeing is that money isn't going to just solve the problem, at least not the way the money's being spent. What my observation is that what state leaders are not wanting to address is the dramatic change in policies that have to happen, particularly related to the mental health population that is on the streets. The ability to be able to go commit people or force them into treatment and get them well and healthy, not only would be humane, but it's going to be essential to restoring a sense of safety and order on our streets. And then there's similar interdiction that needs to be done by those that are out there because they're seeking a lifestyle of addiction that can easily be found on the streets. Again, there's no accountability or incentive to get these people into programs. So I look at what former Mayor of San Diego, Kevin Faulconer, did when he was mayor down there. He did provide housing. And when he got people into that housing and forced them off the streets into housing, they could get into some interdiction. But I think our state leaders are going to have to, at some point, really confront this issue on mental health and whether or not we need to have tougher laws on commitment.
The LA Times recently focused on a poll, and the key finding from this poll was nearly 4 in 10 voters said that homeless people in their neighborhood made them feel significantly unsafe. So that being said, we talk about, tiny homes, Project Homekey, putting homeless people in hotels, and then building facilities, for mental health issues, drug treatment. But here's the thing, building in California and the cost of it, Steve, it's expensive and it's hard to cut through that red tape.
Oh, absolutely. And what Rob said is actually right. We have to change some of the laws to force people to get the treatment they so desperately need. We need to build more drug treatment centers. We need to reopen some of the psychiatric hospitals that were closed under Reagan. We need to sue cities that aren't doing enough to enforce the laws they have. And of course, we need to build more housing, but it's coming at a cost of something like $400,000 per unit of affordable housing. You can't build it fast enough, and that's not going to solve the problem anytime soon.
You brought up Ronald Reagan. I'm reminded of that quote that he says, government is not the solution to our problems, government is the problem. So, Rob, I mean, can our state leaders sort of figure this out?
They can. I think there has to be, on the mental health piece of this, there needs to be a recommitment to mental health. So Reagan closed mental health hospitals in the 70s because there was abuses. Think One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. We're in a different era. And I think there needs to be a reapproach to mental health that gets, again, really because it's humane, gets people off the street, into treatment, and frankly back into productive lives, which often can be the case once there's a medical regimen and there's been treatment administered. So the abandonment of really a generation ago of mental health, I think we can feel confident we can reapproach those services today with much more higher likelihood we're not going to have the abuses of the past, that we can do this more humanely, we can do it with more transparency and accountability to those that would be administering care.
Steve, in your piece, you also mentioned comments from former Governor Jerry Brown, and I'm paraphrasing here, to something he even said on this show, that there needs to be some sort of accountability too.
Right, and you mentioned that LA Times poll. It also talked about that, and it almost cut across party lines that both Democrats and Republicans feel like they need to have compassion on this issue, but there has to be some buy-in from the people on the street when they're able to make that decision. And if they're not able to make that decision, then they have to be forced into it, because otherwise we're seeing what's happening. Our city's given up. If you go down a few blocks, not too far from your studio, you can see the city has given up. And for the people that live there, for the businesses who are trying to maintain a business in that circumstance, it just is forcing them to close or give up. And we hear multiple instances of homeless people just walking in, taking things off the shelves because there's no enforcement. Shopping carts everywhere, tents on highways. I mean, it's out of control, and it is time to have a multi-pronged program with this that might be a little defiant of public opinion and some of the activists on this, and actually get something done.
All right, so that being said, despite all the issues that we're facing here in California, Rob, I want to bring up your op-ed that you penned recently, talking about, this is part of the headline, part of the title, that California love is bipartisan. And you recently toured the Annex building here in Sacramento that is going to be torn down. You both spent a lot of time there. And there's a part of this that I want to point out. Reflecting upon the end of the horseshoe era has me thinking about the relationship between Californians and Americans more broadly and their political institutions. We are such, not only a divided state, but a divided country right now.
Yeah, I think my friend Steve identifies with this as well. When you serve in the governor's office, the nickname of which is the horseshoe because of the way it's shaped, it's a huge responsibility, and it's a humbling experience. And that is something that, regardless of party, the fraternity of those of us that have had that privilege to serve, I think we largely all share that in common. But I do look at our institutions and I get concerned, particularly at the federal level, the institution of Congress, the institution of our elections, and I am concerned about the lack of respect and trust in institutions. And as I say in the op-ed, that doesn't mean we bow to the institutions. We work to improve them, we hold them accountable, we clean them up when they become corrupt. But it's within these institutions that our founders geniusly created that we also then are able to have our debate now in this day between two different parties and create public policy and govern a state and a nation. And it would really be healthy if people are interested in these institutions being healthy, and that when they aim their bitter attacks, that they're not attacking the institutions, but trying to hold people accountable or change who's running those institutions, because there's a significant difference between the two.
Yeah, see, we're so tribal right now. It's like we forgot how to disagree. We can disagree and we can still, you know, at the end of the day, no matter what side you're on, be friendly and respect each other.
Yeah, I moved to Sacramento from Washington, D.C. after working on Capitol Hill for Congressman Fazio from Sacramento for a long time. And when I moved here, I was amazed that I went to work for the speaker that, you know, Kevin McCarthy, who was then the Republican leader, now, of course, the Republican leader in Congress, would come into the speaker's office, a Democrat, and sit around and joke and gossip and all those things. Congress, I never saw that 20 years ago, although there was a strong group of people in the middle of both parties who got along, who co-sponsored bills. You know, famously, Ted Kennedy and Senator Orrin Hatch, from total polar opposite ends of the philosophical spectrum, used to get together and get big legislation passed. We rarely see that these days, and it's a real shame.
Stephen Miglio, Rob Stutzman, we appreciate your time here on Inside California Politics.
Always good to be with you, Nikki.